New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Well, hello, my lovely friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to have you here with me. My name is Bonnie Gonzalez. I am a grief coach. I am a certified grief educator, registered nurse, religious science practitioner, and a licensed soul collage facilitator. Most importantly, a human being right here with you, embracing you during our challenging times. So thank you for joining me. And of course, my show is about grief. So here's what I would like for you to do. I would like for you to sit back and make this next minutes with me or hour with me, make it about you and for you. Ask questions. Be a part of the conversation. I would just be so thrilled to have that. And if you're watching this on the replay, you can still ask questions. I still get those questions and can answer it the following episode. So please make this about you. Get a cup of tea, get a cup of coffee, glass of water, lemonade, tea, glass of wine, if it's that time for you. And just sit back and relax, because grief is definitely one of the topics that we don't talk about in our lives or in our culture. So I want you to just applaud yourself for showing up. Applaud yourself for just clicking the link to say, let me see what this is all about. Because this is for you. It is for you to help, as my theme says for today, is to help demystify grief. To help demystify grief. It's like exactly, what is grief? How do we go about learning about our grief? Where are we with our grief? And with that, I want to just, I want to start off with a little bit of a reading by one of my favorite late writers, a young woman from West Africa, Sobonfu Somé, who made her transition a few years ago. But wise woman. And what she has to say about grief is this. We experience joy and sadness. Many times we have grief that we don't have words for. We have many losses. And it's important for us to grieve, to recover from what we have lost. Grieving is a soul cleansing way to reclaim and to recover our spirit. When we don't grieve, we stay in an unhealthy place and lose who we are. So it is very important to cry, to walk in nature, and to express our grief, so that we can feel safe and sane once again. And also, so our bodies can recover from the loss. Yes, our bodies, mind, body, spirit. And when we're grieving, everything is involved, all of us, all of our senses, all of our in complete essence is involved. in the grieving process. And so you may say, well, exactly what is grief, Bob? And get to the point. What is grief? And grief is just defined as grief is the intense emotional response we experience after having a significant loss. And those losses can be more than death, but of course, including death of a loved one. But what about the end of a relationship, the loss of a job, or some other major life changes? And it typically involves really experiencing those difficult feelings that we want to run away from. But those feelings can include just really flat out distress. How about yearning, confusion, separation, anxiety, a fixation on the past, what was, living in that past zone, and then apprehensive about the future. So that's grief, and grief is caused by loss, which if you've been with me, you know that is definitely where grief comes from a loss. And so if you can look at it that way, that there is something lost and not just thinking about the loss of a life, because so many times that's why people don't want to discuss grief or even acknowledge it, because of the fact that they associate grief with death. As soon as I say grief, the first thing people will say to me, oh, you're talking about death all the time. That must be just, but it's like, no, it's not death of a person. It's a loss. And it could be a death of the relationship, if you want to say that, or that it is a death in a sense that a part of your life has really changed and you can't go back to the way it was before. And we all grieve differently, so we want to honor that there's no cookie cutter way of moving through grief or cookie cutter way of honoring grief. It's if it's your grandmother that died or that your dog ran away. I mean, grief is grief, and they need to be tended to. Those losses that put you into grief need to be tended to. And so I thought what I would start with is just normal or common grief, just normal responses to grief, which I talked about. But it could be a mixture of different emotions, including sadness, anger, guilt, shock, denial, blame, and numbness. Numbness and confusion are top for me. I'm just really totally numb with when I'm in grief, and a little bit of confusion. More so than my normal confusion. But anyway, these emotions are often followed, though, by a gradual, and I mean gradual accepting of the loss, and then being able to continue with daily activities, even though it may be difficult. But as time passes, you find it easier and easier to continue to move through your daily activities. And the time it takes, it will vary for everybody, but everybody wants to know, when am I going to feel normal again? When am I going to feel normal again? And just to honor that as just a general guideline put out there. After a year, maybe it won't be so difficult. I'm not saying, a year later you're feeling, clicking your heels and running down the street. None of that. But usually after a year, that intensity that has overtaken you has dissipated, and you're able to move through your life. Though I said grief still may come up, it still may rear up. That's okay. Now they're advocating for people, if after a year you're still, say, as devastated as you were back in the first weeks of your loss, that is the time that it becomes or called complicated grief or prolonged grief. And complicated grief and prolonged grief do need their own special treatment. And we'll talk about that. But what I thought I would just let you know that there's so many forms of grief, or did you know that? We'll start with, maybe I'll go in alphabetical order, or a little bit of anticipatory grief. And anticipatory grief is just what the word says. You're anticipating that someone will stick with death for a minute, that someone's going to die. Your Uncle Joey's been battling cancer. Aunt Lily's not looking good. She slipped into a coma. And you start to anticipate that loss. And that is one of the, I guess you could say, advantages or opportunities that long lingering illnesses can provide for the survivors, that you've had time, hopefully, to talk with your loved one about about what's going to happen in the future after they've made their transition. Maybe you just want to talk to them about what it is that is in your heart. I remember when my father was dying from cancer, and believe me, that's so many years ago, but I had the sense of mind to sit with him and talk to him about how much I was going to miss him when he was gone. And he gave me such consoling words that he wanted me to be at peace with his passing, because he said we would be together again. And we had been to the other side, seen the other side, and it was absolutely beautiful. So know that's a part of anticipatory grief that can, maybe as difficult as it is at the time, can bring you solace much later. There were groups of widows in Germany that they did interviews, and their spouses had been ill for a long period of time, at least a year. And they interviewed them, and so many of the women, a large percent of the women, said that the anticipatory grief was much harder than the grief that they experienced when their loved one actually transitioned, when they actually died. That grief afterwards was so much less. And so, in a sense, maybe anticipatory grief can be preparing you in a way that you're doing your grieving up front before the person has transitioned. So know that can be a positive of anticipatory grief. And it doesn't have to be you're anticipating, Aunt Sally dying, but it could be loss of a job. Know that your job is coming to an end and you're going to have to find other employment. What about anticipating the loss of your home? It's like, oh, we're going to have to move. We're going to have to give up this. What about, yes, but anyway, I'll stop there. I'll stop there with anticipatory grief. Just saying that it can fit into so many situations. Like I said, loss of a job, geographical move, having things taken away, that knowing that something's going to be taken away that you have enjoyed and will change your life. So from anticipatory grief, then we move on to cumulative grief. And cumulative grief is it's a grief where you experience multiple losses in a short space of time. It's almost got, like getting a punch to the gut and not having time to take a deep breath before there's another hit and another hit. So know that is cumulative grief, and that can be very, very, very debilitating in a way, mentally, for people to have so many losses in a short period of time. And then there's collective grief. And that's when we all mourn together for natural disasters. The war in the Ukraine, the California wildfires, Israeli and Palestine. So many people are grieving that. I know so many of my friends are in the US are grieving what they feel, the latest political status, the political climate in the US. They're grieving for what has been lost or perceived to have been lost. And so that's a collective grief. And the part that is a plus, or that you can use to your advantage or see in a positive, with collective grief, if everyone is mourning, you have more people to talk to. And as I always say, grief needs to be shared, heard, and validated. And when there's collective grief, that's what everyone is doing. So in essence, without realizing, we're helping each other to heal as we share our stories in collective. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is disenfranchised grief. And it's like, what is disenfranchised grief? And that's when your grief is not recognized by society for the depth and breadth of how it touches your life. It's not recognized. For instance, the death of an ex-spouse, even though maybe you've been divorced for 30 years, but that death is a chapter of your life that now it's dead, it's over, and you grieve that. How about the loss of a pet? First thing people say when there's a loss of a pet is like, oh, you can get another dog. Oh, you can get another cat. But that's not true. You're still, even if you can get another dog or cat, you're still grieving the loss of that particular dog or that particular cat. Another thing that falls under disenfranchised grief is the loss of mobility, aging, all those things that are happening, all of those I call them silent losses, or secret, the losses that they're so subtle and silent that you realize one day, oh, I can't do that anymore. I can't jump over those stairs as quickly, or, oh, I need some help with getting up. That is a disenfranchised grief. People will say, oh, you're just getting older. That's all it is. It's like, yes. But what about if I want to talk about how it's impacting me, how I'm feeling mentally around the loss of the mobility, or whatever it is that that is bringing you grief, but you have no place to express it. Maybe failing eyesight, maybe you've had to give up your driver's license. There's so many things that touch us in our lives that are so personal that we feel like there's nowhere to really express what we're feeling and get the emotional support that we need. So just want to touch on those 4 or 5 categories of grief. 1, 2, 3, 4 categories of grief that is common. And so with that, just talking about that, it really doesn't matter what is the cause of your grief. It still has to be tended to. It still has to be tended to. And how do you tend to it? What do you do when we're talking about grief? And I want to back up a minute, just for a minute. And I want to ask your question. I want you to really think about it for a minute. Who taught you how to grieve? Who taught you how to grieve? Think about that for a moment. Just think about that. Who taught you? I mean, I don't remember anyone saying, oh, little Bonnie, come here, let me tell you about loss. And, when you lose something, you're going to feel sad. You're going to be heartbroken. No, or the, bigger losses in life, that you will have these emotional responses and feelings. And here's what to do when you have that. And oh, our sweet little children. Are we even teaching our children how to grieve? Think about it. Are we teaching our children how to grieve? And you say, what do you mean by teaching them to grieve? Are you letting them see you grieve when you're in grief? A time that you can talk about what you're feeling. Like, yes, I am just so, I'm just so exhausted, so tired. I lost my job. I am just, trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And I know we don't want to cause our children anxiety around grief. We don't want to cause them anxiety, but we want to let them know that it is something that we can experience and that you can recover from. It's the not talking about it that leaves so many unanswered questions and creates such a mystery around it. So allowing our children to see us grieve and talking about it in a healthy way when you can. I know that grief, or when we first have a loss, we can really be thrown into, I feel like it's shock, a state of shock where you just can't even, think and quite put things together. But when you can, remember that our children are watching. And I wanted to, with that said, about who taught you how to grieve, the reason I bring it up is because if we think about that we really didn't get taught, or maybe some of you did, that's wonderful. You can share that teaching with other people, the way that you were taught to grieve, and you can share that with other people. But I say that so that we can be gentle with ourselves. We weren't taught. I mean, if nobody told you how to drive a car and they just said, here's car keys, now go and drive. It's like, what would you do? What would you do? If, you may try and there'll be a lot of starts and stops and hard braking and speeding up. But if someone teaches you how to drive, they slowly show you all the rules of the road and how to accelerate and how to brake and, how to steer left, right. And so you're taught. And so we haven't been taught about it. So therefore, be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with what comes up. And if you can, find a grief buddy. I always say it's great to have someone who will listen. Someone's on standby that will listen. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I want to give you some other thoughts around how to cope with grief, okay? First, let's just start by taking a deep breath and kind of shifting and, sitting up a little and paying attention, because I'm going to sit up and pay attention as I go over step-by-step guide on how to cope with grief, okay? So after a loss, it can really feel like grief will never end and that you'll be stuck in the state of sorrow. But as I said earlier on, the time will pass. I said a year after year, the time will pass and you'll be less overwhelmed. But you need to really, the thing with grief is time, patience, and support will lead to healing. So time, patience, and support leads to healing. But know that healing is possible. It really is possible. It's only harder when you don't express your grief. So you can start by, if you don't have that wonderful individual support, like a friend or family member, friend or family member, what else could there be? A friend or family member, you can always engage in grief therapy. And grief therapy can be a valuable tool really valuable too for dealing with our grief, because especially if it's a loved one that's transitioned, that has caused your grief, there's all those feelings of guilt that comes up, and could have done this or that better, that there's such a kind of a complicated, complex relationship that makes it a little bit more tricky to really grieve and move forward. So engage in some good grief therapy. And if those people that like recommendations and timelines, but the recommendation is at least 16 weeks of therapy, especially if it's complicated grief that you've been dealing with for years. You may need that's what 4 months of therapy. And know that 4 months will come and go, and they will pass. Okay, they will pass. The other thing is to make space for your grief, okay? Grief takes time and can't be rushed. Allow yourself to grieve at your own pace and in your own way. And accept whatever comes up, accept those emotions. As I said, the anger, the denial, the shock, the blame, whatever comes up, be with it. Be with it. Try to just accept your emotions. I always say, if you can just lean into the discomfort that you're feeling. Because so many times we want to run away from it, or we do run away from it, not realizing that what we're running from is the very thing that will heal us. You know, grief superpower is healing. So leaning into what it is that you're feeling. And don't feel that you have to be strong. To be strong for what? Oh, what's strong for what? What does that do? But lead to more grief or prolonged grief, because then you can't be that. I've got to be strong, and you're not feeling it. And therefore, it just makes that grief last even longer. So why don't you put your thoughts on paper? Journaling is a powerful way to express your feelings. Write down your thoughts and memories and emotions as they come. This can help the process. And if you don't like to write, I know a lot of people don't. I don't want to journal. I'd say every phone now has a recorder. Record your emotions. Record them. So that the idea is so that it comes out, that it's not staying in. What you're feeling is not being suppressed and held within. As you know, what you resist will persist. So we want to allow that to come up and out. Allow yourself to cry. Allow yourself to be angry. I studied with David Kessler when I was becoming a certified grief educator, and he has lost his son, adult son, a young adult son, like 21 or 22. But anyway, he was saying sometimes when his grief comes up and it just comes out as anger, that he has this baseball bat or plastic bat that he takes and beats the bed with it. And he says that sometimes when things come up that really make him angry about losing his son, he says his quote is, "I'm going to take it to the bat." And he'll just go and just, that bat beat the bed with that bat until that rage passes. I had another friend who talked about breaking plates. There was some place they would go and they could throw and break plates to help get the rage out. The other one was, going to the woods with eggs and, smashing the eggs, or throwing and smashing the eggs. So there's ways to get that anger up and out of our bodies. The thing is to be honest that that's what you're feeling. That's what you're feeling. And if you're physical, taking long walks or going for a hike, set an intention that that's what you're going to do is, walk through your grief. And, go for a long walk. And if you like, go with a friend and an opportunity to talk if that's what you want to do. And the other one is creating a ritual. Whatever, try out different rituals to honor the loss of your loved one or loss or to honor what it is that you lost. If it was that job, if it was getting into that special college that you didn't get into, a ritual maybe to release that and to release what you didn't get, to bring in what you want. Also, I've talked about this before, making a touchstone for your grief. Whatever it is that you're grieving, you could take a little button, a little rock or crystal that's in your pocket, that every time you touch it, that's you're soothing your grief. Oh, how about those little hearts that you put in your purse and they kind of jingle jangle? Uh, I have friends that use those to remember, to just remind themselves every time they hear it or see in their purse that they remember, oh, yes, I am loved. And of course, lean on those that are offering their support. Lean on others that want to help. They want to support you. And if you're one of those people, people say, what can I do? I really want to help. What can I do, Bonnie? What you do is, as you're going through your day, thinking about things that you just can't get done, you need somebody to take the clothes to the dry cleaner, or you need somebody to pick up the clothes from the dry cleaner. You need someone to go to a special store that only sells what you need to repair something in the home. Make a list of all those things that you need that would be nice if somebody could help you with. And then the next time that someone asks you, what can I do? You have a list. You have, oh, if you could pick up this from the hardware store the next time you're in that area, I would greatly appreciate it. People want to help. People really want to help. And most importantly, and I know I've said this so many times, rest is just vital. Rest is vital. So if you can, try to get adequate rest. And if you can't, know that make it a goal. Make it a goal. You'll be able to deal and move through your grief a lot easier if you're rested. And if all else fails, if none of that is a possibility that I've mentioned, you can always go for therapy, for professional therapy, to grief coach, grief counselor, psychotherapy. And that can really be a lifesaver to help move you, especially through complicated grief. So with that, I just want to say that I know that I've shown a light on grief today, demystifying grief, and just being gentle with yourself. Just being gentle with yourself is the way to move through any form of grief. Being kind and gentle and patient with yourself. You have suffered a loss, and my heart's with you. So my desire is for you to be kind to yourself versus being hard. So with that, I want to bring us to a close. I've been using this deck. Joe, if you will put that first slide up. I've been using, it's called the Grief Deck, and it's rituals, meditations, and tools for moving through grief. And the creator of these it's created by different artists. It's a deck of about 60 cards. And it's created by artists and grief workers in collaboration with artists and death doula, Andrea Jinknick, who curated the project with the Artists Literaries Institute. So, I didn't know that was gone. I would have. Okay. All righty. Joe, if you put up the card that has a chair on it, that's what I'll say, the card with the chair. Yeah, if you can just leave it there for a few minutes, that'll be great. So this card, what it is about, it says the importance of routine. Loss interrupts the general flow of our lives. Things are not as they were, and life can feel chaotic. One way of bringing order into the chaos of loss is to establish healthy routines. Choose the time you want to wake up each morning and set the alarm. Incorporate daily activities in an organized fashion. Decide what time you will go to bed each night and ensure that your evening routine is set up to help you succeed. The comfort of routine may bring a sense of peace. Thank you, Jill. So many people feel that life is out of control, and setting up routines can be a way of giving you back that feeling and sense of being in control. All righty, and our last card, Joe. And this one, I just love this. It's straight to the point. The little banner across her face says, "You are still worthy, even if breathing is all you could do today." I'll read it again. You're still worthy, even if breathing is all you could do today. And the back of this card just says, rest. Take a nap without guilt. Take a nap without guilt. I think I said that, getting adequate rest. So thank you. So that's going to conclude our demystifying grief. So I hope I've given you some pointers, or I've given you some new information around grief, or the types of grief, some new information that you can use to start your healing journey, or to assist you along on your healing journey. And if not that you can help someone else who may be in grief and starting their journey. So let's arm ourselves with knowledge so that we can help each other navigate the choppy waters of grief, because we know that grief is life's greatest teacher, and nothing to run from, nothing to hide. It is a teacher. It's everything to be gained. Grief has its transformative powers. So trust me with that. So until next week, I just want to leave you with this. I want you to, as soon as we're finished here, I just want you to go look in the mirror, hold your own gaze, and I want you to ask yourself, what do I need today? What do I need today? Whatever comes up, I want you to honor it. I want you to honor what yourself, you yourself, is asking for. Not what society wants you to do today, what you want to do. And with that, thank you. I'm still Bonnie Gonzalez, your doula for grief, and I am a grief coach, and I'm here for you. So be well until next time. Namaste.